My name is Ralf Friedrichs. I'm an addiction recovery coach, a life coach, and the host of this show, to Take Your Life Back Today show. Your audience wins over any audience with these 10 simple public speaking tips. I did a book signing last night in a speech, and I picked these up. Do you hate public speaking? Are you afraid that no one will pay attention? Are you nervous about getting up and talking in front of strangers or even family? Do you have social phobia, also called social anxiety disorder? It's the most common psychological disorder and can be a serious impairment in daily life. Even if you don't have social phobia, however, you may be intimidated by the idea of public speaking. Luckily, there are ways to overcome your anxiety and utilizing these steps. Before I explain these, let me give you some background. In an academic world, people give talks all of the time. Professors lectures to their students, and students give presentations for their professors. Deans talk to the faculty, college presidents to parents, and recruiters to prospective students. Candidates for jobs come to campuses and give the infamous job talk, where they put their entire careers on the line in the space of 1 hour. Conference speakers share their research to national, if not international, audiences in the hopes of educating their colleagues about their scholarly insights. Given the importance of the well-delivered speech in academia, it might surprise you to learn that many of our speeches academics hear or give may just not be all that good. Some of these speeches are great, but some are flat out terrible, my friends. You know, you're at a bad talk when the audience members are either more glued to their watches and iPhones or laptops than they are to you, the speaker. Coughing, yawning, and uncomfortable rusting add further to the image of the inattentive, if not resentful, audience, my friends. Hearing boring speeches is not a phenomenon limited to the world of education. Staff presentations, sales meetings, management seminars, business world can be plenty mind-numbing. Also book signings. Sermons, speeches at weddings, funerals, and family reunions can also be notoriously sleep-inducing. Speeches are the bread and butter for politicians, but a candidate who says the wrong thing is in for the downfall. Now, let's flip the scenario to talks that are interesting, if not enthralling, and speakers whose charisma fills the room as much as they do their words. What makes the great ones great and the bad ones dreadful? Is it intelligence, personality, experience, lack of social anxiety, or some combination? Perhaps even more so, however, are the guidelines that great speakers follow that rely on simple application of these principles derived from social, educational, and applied psychology. Know your audience is number one. Be sure to check before giving any type of talk to find out the level of the audience's previous knowledge, their familiarity with the topic, and their likely interest. If you do your homework properly ahead of time, you'll have few insights that will help you prepare your talk. But you won't rely on only the background work, because you will also rely on today's speech to give some sort of background. Check in your audience. Start by asking audience members a few simple questions that require them to raise their hands. First, this gets their blood flowing into their limbs, but second, and more importantly, this allows you to find out whether you need to adjust what you were going to say. Accommodate to their interest. If you're asked to speak to high school class on career day, for an example, ascertain how many of them might actually be interested in the career you're going to talk about, because if it's a minimal amount, you need to do something different. Number 3 is keep your eyes focused on your audience. Charismatic speakers make liberal use of eye contact. They pick people out of their audience, more than one, as not to appear creepy, and look right into their eyes. I'm talking to you. The message you communicate when you take this approach, audience members feel immediately connected to you because they believe that you value their attention. As I'm doing to you in the camera. It's especially important for you to look at people in the back audience as well, or at least seem to be looking at them if you can't see them. Draw everyone in the room into your circle. They won't want to look away because they feel drawn in by your connection. You're making to them part of this conversation. Number 4, use PowerPoint wisely. Like any tool, PowerPoint can be used or abused. The best PowerPoint slides are crisp, clean, and short. As a bonus, they also have a good graphics that illustrate the concepts of on the slide without being over cluttered or cute. The biggest mistake that people make when using PowerPoint is to cram too much information in one slide. The second biggest mistake they make is reading the information directly off the slide. Bullet points should be 3 to 4 words, and there shouldn't be more than 3 or 4 per slide. If you put a quote on a slide, don't read it out loud. It's on the slide for your audience to read, not for you to read. Number 5 is don't just read your speech. Folks, if you look at my video from my book signing yesterday, some speakers feel tremendous need to read every word they have carefully crafted on the page. I had it all written down, but I didn't use any of it. The biggest problem with the approach is that the audience members are bound to think themselves that they could be a lot more comfortable and save a lot of time if you just sent them your talk and they didn't have to go to the to where you are to hear it. They are to hear you give your own unique spin on the topic, and they are there to hear you give it in. They want you to give it in person. Make it worth their time. Make it worth their effort. As an example, think of an Academy Award acceptance speech that truly moved you. Chances are those speeches were spoken, not read. Spoken from the heart, like I did last night. I totally went off my script and spoke from the heart. You can't look at your audience in eye when your eye is glued to your written speech. Number 6 is allow any humorous remarks to just flow organically from your talk rather than forcing them out. Many people are their funniest not when they read or rattle off a well-worn joke, but instead when they react to the situation as it's happening. For an example, self-depreciating remarks about slips of the tongue or types are bound to draw snickers along as long as they are not pre-scripted. You can also elicit smiles from your audience if you react to a situation in a room, such as a noise in the hallway or a comment about someone in the audience that is truly funny. They'll never draw a laugh at the expense of someone else, someone in the room, or maybe someone that you know. You don't want to be sarcastic. You're not a stand-up comic, and so heckling is just not appropriate unless you are a stand-up comic, in which case you better be good at it because it's not the act for this. Number 7 is to stay focused on what is happening at the moment. Humorous situations are much more humorous when they evolve. Similar, you will be much better speaker if you truly focus on what you are saying and how your audience is reacting. You will also be less nervous if you dig deep down into the content of your presentation, what you're presenting, rather than thinking about how nervous you are and how much you'd like to get out of the situation you're in. Most experts advise people with performance anxiety in music or sports to get into the flow, and the same is true of public speaking. It's also helpful to find your maximum level of arousal so that you're not too scared, but not too laid back either. On the same note, don't allow yourself to suffer from imposter syndrome, in which you convince yourself that you don't know enough to be up there talking. No one would have asked you to speak if they didn't think you had something worthwhile to say and something worthwhile for the audience to hear. Number 8 is decide how much you can fit into the time you're allowed, and then cut your talk by half. How many times have you listened to speakers who announce that they have more to say, but they've run out of time? How many times have you committed this error to yourself while making a public speech? The only cure is not going over the time you have is to cut back into your prepared remarks, notes, not written speech, etc. Then you can have a few disposable topics to add back in should you have bonus time at the end of the speech. However, the chances are that your audience will appreciate your ending a little earlier, especially if they want to ask some questions at the end of your speech. Don't feel that you're shortchanging them if you do so. I promise you that they would rather have extra time at the end of this speech to ask questions. One way to build a safety net for yourself is to use the so-called presenter mode, the PowerPoint. I won't go into details here, but there are ways for you to see all your slides, including those that you're skipping, so that your audience cannot miss anything. In fact, you can even have your email open while you're giving a talk. Using this mode, though obviously I wouldn't advise it, is one way to do it. Number 9 is give yourself some time points to hit during your talk. If you know that you have 30 minutes of your presentation, decide where you need to be at 15, 20, and 25 minutes into it. Work backward if you need to, if you'd like, from the ending, and then see when you want to be at the midpoint. Whatever your method might be totally different than mine. It's important for you to construct a detailed timeline that allows you to pace yourself. If someone shoves a card under your nose, my friends, signaling their 5 minutes left, which is what happens in many conference settings, even at book signings, you won't panic if you already planned where you want it to be at that point. By pacing yourself out, you again gain that additional value of being able to slow down your rate speech enough so that you can add emphasis instead of racing through. You want to avoid motor mouth, one of the occupational hazards in speaking, who don't learn how to use the time wisely. And last but not least, my friends, is practice, practice, and practice. It took me over 2,600 videos. If you're not a natural entertainer and feel overwhelmed at the thought of public speaking, you can buy yourself a great deal of extra confidence by going over your talk in front of a sympathetic audience of people who you trust. Allow yourself to accept their feedback, which I'm sure they will do gently if they truly care about you. If you want to go that extra distance, make a video of yourself like I've done over and over. My first video was a total train wreck. Here I am 5 years later. And then force yourself to watch that video, and hopefully you won't cry when you see it. If you don't like what you see, do it over and over and over. You don't want to make yourself too self-conscious, so I wouldn't advise obsessing over every imperfection like I do sometimes. However, you might find yourself pleasantly surprised when you realize that you did a pretty darn good job. Public speaking isn't so much an art as it is science. Yet there is some art to being able to win over an audience. Following these rules that I just gave you, this advice is a great start to becoming a great public speaker in any situation, but it's your unique personality, qualities that will ultimately make it all come together and have your audience coming back for more. Public speaking is not easy. Call me at 844-405-HELP. We can help each other take our lives back. Be good to yourselves and definitely be good to others. And remember that God blesses. He blesses you each and every day you wake up with 86,400 seconds. May God bless America, and goodbye. And remember, practice your public speaking. After a while, you'll be good, and you'll be able to look in the camera and say your words without having to read.